ओम हरिः ओम तत्सत् श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। ओम सदाशिवसमारम्भां व्यासशङ्करमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः। नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिवा कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणगुं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। the second chapter of Taittiriya Upanishad begins with the word Brahma, as we know already. It is known as Brahmavalli, and the unique presentation of analysis of Ananda is also presented in this, is found in this chapter. Therefore, this chapter is also known as Anandavalli. And combining these two things, this chapter is known as Brahmanandavalli also. And this begins with a very profound statement that knower of Brahman attains the infinite. But before entering there, we have to see now Shankara Bhagavatpada's introduction of this chapter. This introduction also, introductory commentary also, again another Sambandha Bhashyam, but it's not too elaborate, very brief. What is Sambandha Bhashyam? Sambandha Bhashyam, a commentary which presents the connection between what has been previously discussed and what is going to be discussed now, is called Sambandha Bhashyam. Earlier also, we saw he presented a Sambandha Bhashyam in the introduction to the very Sikshavalli, where we saw how he refuted Purupakshi's Karmakandi's views. There also, until the sixth chapter, the subject matter discussed in the Taittiriya Aranyakam was all about karma. Only from seventh also there's a discussion on karma. So 8th chapter, which the second chapter of Taittiriya Upanishad, discusses Jnanam. Therefore, he presented the connection between the subject matter discussed before in the previous chapters, subject matter which is going to be discussed in the later chapter. Sambandha Bhashyam. So similarly, here also, he presents the connection between what has been discussed in the Sikshavalli. First, he briefly restates the subject matter of the Sikshavalli. Then he also presents what is going to be discussed in this second chapter. Why he presents it? Because for clear understanding of the teaching, it is very important to have the connection, know the connection between what was discussed before and what is going to be discussed now. It is called a review or revision. In Shastra teaching, I think I mentioned before also, there is a methodology known as Simha Avalokana Nyayaha. Simha Avalokanam means how the lion, Simha is lion. Lion always, when it walks in the forest majestically, it always looks around carefully, keeps on walking. After walking, having walked few steps, few feet, then always the lion will stop and turn its head around and see what is around, for the sake of finding out two things. When the lion stops and turns around and sees, it wants to know whether any hunter is around to shoot it. Also, it wants to know whether any food is available. For the purpose of knowing two things, lion will stop and turn around and make sure no hunter is following, and if nothing is available, it will move ahead. Simhavalokanam. It's called Simhavalokanam. Okay, lions turning around and lions stopping while walking and seeing around is called Simhavalokanam. So here also, when we are studying, in our study, we are progressing further. So in between, when we move from one subject matter to another subject matter, it is also in teaching, we stop. 1 minute, see what has been done before and to connect it with what is going to be done now. It's called seeing the connection between what has been understood already in the previous class, in the previous chapter, and now what is going to be newly understood in the new chapter. That's why Sambandha. So Shankaracharya begins his commentary restating briefly what has been discussed before. So here, very briefly, he presents the subject matter of the previous chapter, Sikshavalli. Thereby, he connects the subject with the subject matter of the present chapter. When he presents subject matter of the previous chapter, he mentions that what has been discussed, subject matter of Upasanam, mainly because there are 5 Upasanams discussed in the Sikshavalli. You all remember very well. Samhitopasanam, Vyahrutyupasanam, then Samhitopasanam, Vyahrutyupasanam, Antarhridaya Hiranyagarbhupasanam, Omkarupasanam, one more Upasanam. 5 Upasanams. 5 meditations were discussed in the first chapter. And mainly, so all of them were Hiranyagarbha Upasanani, meditations upon Hiranyagarbha. So he discusses mentions subject matter of the previous chapter was Hiranyagarbha Upasanam. Main subject matter, even though we also learnt other mantras for Japaha, other mantras for Homaha, and that's a Parayanam, the method of learning to recite mantras, the Siksha, we understood the science of pronunciation very briefly, elaborately, briefly but completely. We also learnt other disciplines and attitudes, values, but still, mainly we discussed 5 Upasanams. Meditation upon Hiranyagarbha. So, Hiranyagarbha Upasanam, Saguna Brahma, otherwise, Hiranyagarbha Upasanam formed the main subject matter of the Sikshavalli. And here, subject matter which is going to be discussed in second chapter is not Upasanam, but Nirguna Brahma Jnanam. Knowledge of the attributeless reality. Nirguna Brahma Jnanam forms the main subject matter of the second chapter, whereas Saguna Brahma Upasanam forms the main subject matter of the Sikshavalli, first chapter. Difference. Once you know the difference in subject matter, you can also understand the difference in the benefit also. The benefit of Saguna Brahma Upasanam is Brahma Loka Praptihi, attainment of Brahma Lokaha, or attainment of Hiranyagarbha status. Whereas the benefit of the Nirguna Brahma Jnanam is not Loka Praptihi, but attainment of Moksha, everlasting freedom. And once you know the difference between the benefit of Hiranyagarbha Upasanam and Saguna Brahma Upasanam and Nirguna Brahma Jnanam, you also know the limitation of what Upasanam is and what the benefit of the Upasanam is. you also understand the limitation of the upasana phalam and the limitlessness of the nirguna brahma jnana phalam also. The benefit of nirguna brahma jnanam being moksha, it is an infinite end, whereas Saguna Brahma Upasana Phalam, the result of Saguna Brahma Upasanam being Hiranyagarbha status or Lokaha, it is time bound result. This is how the person knows. And not only that, when he discusses this, what happens? Now the student is given an option, a choice. Or you can say the student it is possible for him to be convinced of what he really wants. Whether he wants to practice Saguna Brahma Upasanam in order to gain time-bound Hiranyagarbha status, or whether he wants to attain Nirguna Brahma Jnanam, thereby accomplish the moksha. When he knows clearly this is subject matter of the previous chapter, this is the subject matter of the present chapter, this is the benefit of that upasanam, this is the benefit of this jnanam. Upasanam kim, jnanam kim. Upasanam of what, jnanam of what. Upasana phalam, what is upasana phalam, what is the jnana phalam. When a person is very clear and he can be 100% convinced of what he wants, what he does not want. What he wants is very clear, he is convinced, then he can be focused in subject matter which is going to be discussed further. And one more important thing is, it's not just the student understands the difference between the subject, the connection between the subject matter of the previous chapter and this chapter, and the connection between the difference between the result of upasanam and the jnanam. The student also understands the connection between the subject matter and the shastram. Pratipadaka Pratipadya Sambandha. The student understands the connection between the benefit, the upasanam and its benefit. The student understands the connection between jnanam and its benefit. It's called sadhana sadhya sambandha, he knows. Now he also understands the connection between the shastram and the subject matter. It's called Pratipadaka Pratipadya Sambandha. Which shastram consists of which subject matter, which can give him the desired phalam, result. So, the subject matter of the karma shastram consisting of upasanam can give him the time-bound result, a loka prapti, attainment of lokas. Whereas subject matter of the moksha shastram or jnana kandaha is brahma vidya, not upasanam, which will give him moksha. Now he knows the difference between the benefits. He knows the difference between subject matter of two shastrams. He also knows the difference between two shastrams. He knows the connection between the subject matter and this shastram, which means he knows that this is the shastram which he should study. Why? It is the moksha shastram in terms of this Brahmananda Valli Upanishad, which he should study. It is a pramanam. It serves as a pramanam, a means of attainment of moksha. It is not enough if we have the pramanam, it must be operated. If I have the eyes, I can keep them closed. But only when I open them, I use them, I operate them, then the pramanam does. If it is used, it is enough, it does what it needs to do. Similarly, this Upanishad, when it is operated as a pramanam, it has to do its job of revealing. The student understands. So with this conviction, then he can further pursue his study, mainly the Moksha Shastra in terms of Upanishad for Jnanam, which itself is Moksha. Okay, keeping this in his mind, with this much in his mind, now Shankaracharya presents his commentary. Let us see here in page number 1 of the big book. Okay. First sentence is, he says, Samhitadi Vishayani Karma Bhiraviruddhani Upasananyuktani. This is the first sentence. Samhitadi Vishayani Samhitadi Vishayani Karma Bhihi Aviruddhani Upasanani Uktani. He says, he just tells us in the previous chapter, Sikshavalli, what has been said, what are all the things which have been discussed in the previous chapter. He says, Samhitadi Vishayani Upasanani. In the previous chapter, mainly 5 meditations were discussed, were taught, and for which there were alambanani, support, the symbols such as samhitas. There are 5 different meditations were discussed before, for which the symbols were samhita, the 4, remember those factors associated with combination of letters, etc., were the alamban symbols. And those upasanani, aviruddhani, they are not opposed to the karma bihi aviruddhani. So meditations or upasanams are not opposed to the performance of rituals prescribed in the karma kanda. Why? Why they are not opposed to each other? They can be combined. Because the performance of ritual, which is otherwise said to be karma also involves doership and enjoyership. And practice of meditation also involves doership and enjoyership. Only karma is a physical oral activity along with the mind, whereas meditation only involves purely the mind. It's a purely mental activity. That's the difference. Otherwise, upasana and meditations are not opposed to karmani. Karmani are not opposed to upasanani because they're all activities, physical, mental, oral activities. So once the activity means in there, doership, I am the doer, I am the meditator, those notions are very much retained. Therefore, they're not opposed to each other, which means definitely a person can perform a fire ritual. He can also combine that karma with the practice of meditation. And combining meditation along with the performance of ritual is known as karma jnana samuchayaha. Maybe karma upasana samuchayaha is also known as karma jnana samuchayaha. Why? Because you should not forget, knowledge and action can never be combined. The word upasana, meditation, is also known by another term called jnanam. The meditation is also known by another term, jnanam or vidya. Do you remember the meaning why it is? Because why meditation is known as jnanam, vidya? Because in meditation, an alambanam is always a nikrishta vastu, very ordinary thing, a symbol. In a symbol, something Utkrishtam is superimposed. See, Bhagavan, the whole, is superimposed upon an ordinary murti here, an ordinary small form. Something superior is superimposed upon something very ordinary. Nikrishta vastuni utkrishta vastunaha aropaha is upasanam. And this upasanam, this superimposition of something exalted upon something very ordinary thing is knowingly done. We know Bhagavan is not this small form, but still we do it. So knowing Bhagavan is not this small one tiny form sitting in a corner of the room, knowingly we superimpose. But this form symbolizes Bhagavan, isn't it? Therefore, the upasanam involves knowingly done superimposition of something superior upon this something ordinary. Therefore, upasanam is also known as jnanam or vidya. We should not mistake the upasanam to be jnanam, okay? So, upasana karma samuchaya is possible. Combining these two are possible because both are activities. In both kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, doership, enjoyership, etc. are involved. Okay, so he says, samhitadi vishayani karma bihi aviruddhani upasanani uktani. They have been discussed before. Is it clear? Okay. Now, next. But the same upasanam cannot be combined with brahmajnanam. That also you must remember here. But the same upasanam or karma cannot be combined with brahmajnanam, which is going to be discussed in the second chapter. Why they cannot be combined? Because Shankaracharya specifically mentions the word aviruddhani. Meditations are unopposed to performance of rituals. He mentions, which means meditations are opposed, okay, jnana opposed to jnanam, which is going to be discussed in the second chapter. Why? Because in jnanam, in the attainment, in the knowledge of the reality, doership is negated completely. Doership is wiped out in jnanam. Whereas in meditation, doership is very much important. Therefore, they cannot be combined. Whereas karma and upasanam can be combined, but jnanam and karma in terms of upasanam cannot be combined. They are opposed to each other. Is it clear? Which means all the topics discussed in the previous chapter are combinable. Whereas the now subject matter which is going to be discussed second chapter cannot be combined with upasanam. That is a different karma, this is different jnanam. Subject matter also is different. Hiranya garbha upasanam or saguna brahma upasanam, meditation upon the reality which is endowed with the attributes. Whereas here, meditation upon nirguna brahman, which is it is a knowledge of the attributeless reality. Okay. With this much understanding, let us go to the next line. Anantaram chantasopadhikatmadarshanamukhtam vyahriti dwarena swarajya phalam nachai tavata aseshataha samsara bijasya upamardhanamasti. And he continues to say anantaram, thereafter. Thereafter means what? After having discussed the meditations involved upon the symbols such as samhita, another upasanam also mentioned there. What is that another upasanam he mentions? Antasopadhikatma darshanam. Anantaram cha antaha. Antaha means inside, in the heart, in one's own mind. Sopadhikatma darshanam uktam. He completely, Shankaracharya used a different term. Sopadhika atma. Sopadhika atma means The word Sopadhika Atma can mean a Jiva. Sopadhika Atma also can mean Hiranyagarbha. Is it clear? Sopadhika Atma means Sagunam Brahma. The word Atma stands for Brahma. Sopadhikam stands for Saguna. Sopadhika Atma means Saguna Brahma. And Darshanam means Uktam, Upasanam. So in the previously, another meditation upon Hiranyagarbha was also mentioned in the previous chapter. Okay? Previous section. Using Vyahritihi as the Alambanam. He mentions in the previous chapter, Sikshavalli, not only the many meditations involving this samhitas as symbols, there was also another meditation, another Saguna Brahma Upasanam, using Vyahriti as the Alambanam also was discussed. And the benefit of that meditation is Swarajya Phalam, that meditation having the result of attaining Hiranyagarbha status, going to Hiranyagarbha Loka was also discussed. He just mentions, you have to remember what all has happened before. Very briefly, he just follows. Now, Nacha etavata aseshatah samsara bijasya upamardanam asti. Now what he says, important line is this. Okay, even if a person practices meditations upon Hiranyagarbha, only object of meditation is repeatedly Sagunam Brahma Hiranyagarbha only. But different meditations were, 5 different meditations were mentioned. Samhita Upasanam, Vyahriti Upasanam, Antarhridaya Hiranyagarbha Upasanam, Omkara Upasanam, like that many Upasanams were mentioned. The meditations were different. Mainly the group meditation, individual meditation, doesn't matter. All the meditations, object of meditation was Hiranyagarbha, Sagunam Brahma. The reality with attributes. Therefore, Saguna Brahma Upasanam, if a person practices, what is the phalam that can be accomplished for the Upasana phalam kim? Swarajya phalam. Going to Hiranyagarbha Loka, Brahma Loka, and attaining Hiranyagarbha status is the benefit of practicing any number of Upasanams mentioned there. Only 5. But that is what he states. His sentences are very emphatic. To put it in English, I'm saying. Now, this is the phalam. He says, Nacha etavata, by all this much effort, etavata means what? By this much effort of practicing meditation upon Hiranyagarbha and going to Hiranyagarbha Loka, attaining Hiranyagarbha status, definitely samsara bijasya aseshataha upamardanam nasti. There is no elimination or removal or resolution of ignorance, the root cause of samsara. Which means samsara is not eliminated. Is the main point he makes it. See, this is what Bhashya study. Bhashyam means how he makes it very clear. Now, even if you do not remember anything what you have learnt in Sikshavalli, this is the important point you have to finally remember. Any amount of karma you perform, any number of rituals you perform, any number of meditations you practice, who can you meditate upon? Ishvara. Hiranyagarbha is the exalted of the Devatas. The most exalted of the Devatas is Hiranyagarbha. You cannot meditate upon anything bigger than Hiranyagarbha. There's nothing bigger than, understand now? Within the realm of manifestations. So if meditation can be only upon Hiranyagarbha, Ishvara. When you meditate upon Hiranyagarbha, what is the phalam? Swarajya phalam, attainment of sovereignty. What does it mean? Becoming an emperor of one's own kingdom is Swarajya prapti. What does it mean? You can become one with Hiranyagarbha, go to Hiranyagarbha Loka, that is the phalam you can attain. But even then, going to Brahma Loka, attaining Hiranyagarbha status does not eliminate the root cause of samsara. Samsara bijasya, the seed of samsara, the cause of samsara, No, upamardhanam na asti. There's no resolution, removal, destruction of the root cause of samsara totally. The total elimination of root cause of samsara does not happen as by result of, even if we have this result of going to Hiranyagarbha Loka. Is it clear? Okay. Ataha, therefore. But now what is that we want? We want to have the samsara resolved. We want freedom from bondage of samsara. And if we want freedom from bondage of samsara, and the root cause of samsara, samsara bija. Bija means seed. The seed of samsara, the cause of samsara has to be resolved. So meditation cannot help you resolve the seed of samsara. The samsara cannot be resolved. Therefore, now page number 3, he says, Ataha aseshopadrava bijasya ajnanasya nivrityartham vidhuta sarvopadhi visheshatmadarshanartham idam arabhyate brahma vidapnoti paramityadi. Now he is presenting the subject matter of the chapter which is going to be read now. How beautiful. See the order. In 2 lines he presented the subject matter of the previous chapter and the benefit of the upasanam. He mentioned about upasanam. Then what upasanam is and what is the benefit of practicing meditation. Finished. Now that upasana palam does not have the capacity to remove samsara because it cannot remove the cause of samsara. He mentioned that. It's a fact. Now he moves on to the subject matter of the present subject chapter. Ataha, therefore, page number 3. Therefore, asesha upadrava bijasya ajnanasya. Nivrityartham. Nivrityartham, for eliminating or for the removal of or the elimination of ignorance, for the resolution of elimination of ignorance which is the seed of all forms of human afflictions. Upadrava. Upadrava means disturbances, afflictions, sufferings and problems. Okay. Asesha. So total resolution or removal of the ignorance, the root cause of all human suffering, human problems. No, for that, okay, for that, vidhuta sarvopadi visheshatma darshanartham idam arabhyate. Now this chapter is begun for the sake of clear vision, darshanartham, clear vision or the ascertained knowledge of the Atma. Okay, which Atma? The Atma, the absolute formless reality, abstract reality obtaining in the form of pure knowledge implied by the term Atma, which is free from all the attributes of upadis. Atma which is free from upadis and the attributes of upadi. So vidhuta means free from. Atma which is free from all upadis and attributes of upadi. Which means we need to have pure Atmajnanam. Knowledge of the pure knowledge. But now what we need? We need the knowledge of the pure knowledge. Vidhuta sarva upadi vishesha. Vidhuta sarvopadi vishesha atma darshanam means knowledge of the pure knowledge. Knowledge of pure consciousness. Knowledge of pure awareness. Knowledge of the reality, abstract reality, which is devoid of, free from upadhis in terms of body, mind, sense complex and all the attributes of the upadhis. Is it clear now? For that purpose, for the knowledge of that purpose, idam arabhyate. Now this section, the second chapter, is beginning with the statement Brahmavid param, Brahmavid apnoti param. The second chapter, having the first sentence Brahmavid apnoti param, is now started for what? For clear, doubt-free vision of the pure knowledge, the attributeless reality implied by the term Atma. Which Atma? Which is free from all upadhis and upadhi limitations and the attributes of upadhi. Is it clear? Now we have to move on to the next. Before we go this chapter, before we start this fourth page, we have to remember sopadhikam nirupadhikam. Sopadhika atma, nirupadhika atma means what? Atma is always nirupadhikaha. Atma is always said to be nirupadhikaha. What does it mean? Atma is ever free from upadhis. Atma is ever free from the attributes of upadhis also. What is upadhi? Physical body is an upadhi for the Atma. Pranas are upadhis for Atma. Sense powers are upadhis for Atma, of Atma. Organs of actions are upadhis for Atma. Your antahkaranam as a mind is upadhi for Atma. As intellect is upadhi for Atma. The memory is upadhi for Atma. All these subtle, entire body, mind, sense complex, okay, become upadhi for the Atma. So what is an individual? Every individual human being is a composite of four important factors. What are they? Gross body, subtle body, causal body, and Atma. All four aspects constitute the individual. Or you can say 5 koshas plus Atma constitute the individual. So here Atma, if we take the essential nature of an individual, is implied by the term Atma, is pure, is of the nature of pure consciousness or pure awareness, pure knowledge. Or it is limitless consciousness, existence. This is the essential nature of an individual. But this Atma is the content of I. But what happens? The I is identified with all other aspects. Body, mind, sense complex. So we say the all other aspects other than Atma, the rest of the 3 bodies are said to be Anatma, non-self. Anatma is material in nature. Atma is of the nature of consciousness. Anatma, body, mind, sense complex, is of the nature of inertness. Even though it is conscious body, sentient body, live body, still body, mind, sense complex is what? Of the nature of inertness. And the body, mind, sense complex has its own limitations, its own attributes, its own problems. Everything, physical body is subject to 6-fold modifications. It has its own problems. It is subject to fall sick, it is subject to die one day, subject to fall apart. These problems are there. Similarly, here, the mind also has the problems. Mind has problems. Pranas have problems, limitations, attributes. Every object has its own attributes. Like that body has its own attributes. Pranas have their own attributes. Mind has its own attributes. But because of the identity with the body, mind, sense complex, the attributes of body, mind, sense complex become superimposed upon the Atma. Therefore, these body, mind, sense complex are said to be upadhis. Body is a upadhaya. Okay? Body is upadhi. What is upadhi? Upa samipe stitva sviyan dharvan. See, remaining in a close remaining very closely, inseparably, that which throws its or falsely transfers its attributes upon something which is nearby, okay, is called upadhi. This is the definition of upadhi. Is it clear what is upadhi? So body cannot transfer its limitations or attributes to Atma. Cannot transfer. But still, as though, falsely transfers. As though it transfers. Because of the identity. It's called upadhi. That's why example given in Shastram is, suppose if there is a glass container, you fill the glass container with some colorful marbles. What happens? The glass container doesn't have color of its own. But because of the colorful things which are very inseparably close to them, the container looks colorful. Is it clear? Which means the flower, suppose we keep some colorful flowers near the glass container. And then the glass container looks colorful. The glass container does not really become colorful. The flowers cannot really transfer the color to the glass container. But still it looks as though the flowers have transferred their color to the container. Is it clear? It's not real transference, false transference. Okay, now the flower is upadhi for the glass container. Similarly, the body consciousness cannot transfer its limitations to Atma, but as though, because of the close proximity. Therefore, body is said to be what? An upadhi. Mind is an upadhi. It's all upadhis. Now, when a body is a mortal, what do we say? I am a mortal. Body is growing old, we say I grow old. Body falls sick, I am sick. These are the expressions to say, to me understand how upadhis attributes are falsely transferred to the Atma. Really, I am not sick. Really, I am not mortal. But still there's a notion. It's called false transference. This is what upadhi does. Suppose prana's hunger is feeling hungry, or hunger is an attribute belonging to pranas. I am hungry means what? The hunger is attributed to Atma, I. Suppose, I can't hear, I'm deaf. I can't see, I'm blind. So these attributes of limitation, the problems of the sense organs also become superimposed upon the I. False transference. Atma never becomes blind. Atma never becomes deaf. It's called false transference of attributes of Anatma upon the Atma. Is called what? Upadhi dharma. Therefore, because they transfer their attributes falsely upon to the Atma, they're said to be upadhis. That which falsely transfers its attributes due to the close proximity is said to be upadhi. Is it clear? So also mind, the sadness, sorrowfulness, or jealousy, or hatred, it's all dharmas belonging to attributes of the mind. I am jealous, I am unhappy, I am sad, I am upset means what? Upadhi dharmas are superimposed, falsely transferred to Atma. Really, no attribute can ever taint the Atma. but still falsely transferred because of the ajnanam. Is it clear now? So, what is Atma? Atma is absolutely ever free from upadhis. Atma is ever free from untainted, untouched by upadhis attributes also. And now what is that jnanam we need? We need the knowledge of the pure Atma. Reality obtaining in the form of pure knowledge, which is implied by the term Atma, which is absolutely free from upadhis and the attributes of upadhi. It is the knowledge of Atma which is always ever free from upadhis and upadhi dharmas, attributes of upadhi. That jnanam is what we want for moksha. Okay, so Shankaracharya says here, in the previous line we saw, I think I made it very clear. So, asesha upadra bijasya ajnanasya nivrutyartam, for the elimination of ignorance, which is the root cause of all human problems, we need we need to attain the knowledge of the absolute reality implied by the term Atma, which is free from all upadhis and upadhis attributes. For that sake, Brahma Vidya, okay, for that sake, Brahma Vidya apnoti paramityadi arabhyate. What does it make it very clear? He reveals here the prayojanam and the shastra sambandha. Okay, subject matter, shastra sambandha. There's a connection between the shastram and the subject matter. We need to know the revealer revealed connection. Shastram is the pratipadakam. Which shastram? Upanishad is the shastram, not Karmakanda. This is the actual Upanishad part is what? Second chapter of the Upanishad. Upanishad is the shastram, moksha shastram. The subject matter of Upanishad is what? Brahma Vidya. This is, we have to understand the connection. And for Brahma Vidya, we want phalam in terms of moksha, for which we need subject matter of Brahma Vidya, and for which we have to study Upanishad, not Karmakanda. Is it clear? He reveals the pratipadaka, pratipadya sambandha between the revealer, revealed connection between the subject matter and the text. Okay. Now, page number 4. Prayojananchasyaha brahma vidyayaha avidyanivrittihi. Again, he makes it very clear. Prayojanam means what? Benefit. Okay. Benefit of what? And benefit of this Brahma Vidya, benefit of the knowledge of the reality implied by the term Brahman, knowledge of absolute reality Brahman is avidya nivrittihi, elimination of ignorance, removal of ignorance. Okay. What does the ignorance do? Elimination of ignorance is actually elimination of the samsara caused by ignorance. Next line he says, Tataha cha atyantikaha samsara bhavaha. Atyantikaha samsara bhavaha. Tataha, thereafter. Once the ignorance is eliminated through Brahma Vidya, then ignorance caused samsara, there will be elimination or resolution of samsara for good. Total removal of samsara. Atyantikaha samsara bhavaha means samsara once resolved through the elimination of ignorance will not come back again. It's absolute freedom. Atyantikaha samsara abhavaha means absolute freedom from bondage for good. Okay, vakshyati cha, and for which he himself presents some quotations from the Upanishad. See, whenever any statement of fact is revealed, he wants to make it very clear, this is not my own personal story, the statement of fact which has the support of the Upanishadic statements. So he quotes from Taittiriya Upanishad, which you all know very well. I'm very happy that you all remember that sentence. Vakshyati cha. Why Upanishad itself is going to state in the Upanishad, we already seen, we are going to see also. What is that? Vidwan bibheti kutascha neti. Remember the statement? Vidwan na bibheti kutascha neti. The wise person who has the knowledge of the Atma is not afraid of anything. This is a statement of Taittiriya Upanishad. What does it mean? Absolute fearlessness is possible. In fact, absolute fearlessness is what? Is freedom. Absolute fearlessness is, utter fearlessness is moksha, which is jnanam, which is happiness, which is anandaha. And that is possible only for the person who has wisdom in terms of self-knowledge. Iti. That's the proof. So here by presenting this quotation, Shankaracharya makes us see the fact that fearlessness and Brahma Vidya and samsara, absence of samsara, and moksha, happiness, being one and the same. Homework, page number until 5. 5 pages homework is increasing number. Okay, page number 6. Samsara nivruttau asatyam abhayam pratishtham vindate. Again, Taittiriya Upanishad, 2nd chapter. We are going to see now, 7th section mantra. Again he quotes, abhayam pratishtham vindate. Samsara nivruttau. When samsara asatyam iti anupapannam. So abhayam pratishtham vindate means a person becomes established in fearlessness. Such a statement, what it reveals, it is impossible if samsara, there's no freedom from samsara. Without being free from samsara, abundance in fearlessness is not possible. Okay, without becoming free from bondage of samsara, abundance in fearlessness is not possible. Samsara goes with the fear. Freedom from samsara is equal to fearlessness. So, abhayam patishtham vindate, one abides in utter fearlessness, becomes established in fearlessness, etc. It is not possible if the samsara is not eliminated. Then krita krite punya pape na tapataha. The punyam and papam, okay, krita akrite punya pape na tapataha. The punyam, papam done, or the punyam not done, punyam not done, etc. Those punya papas do not afflict, scorch a person whom the person who is free from bondage. Once, how long punya papams can afflict a person? How long a person can become the victim of going through the experience of pains and pleasures caused by punya papams? Our own right and wrong actions of the past, which produce the result in terms of punya papams, the punya papams alone become translated into our experience of pains and pleasures, suffering in this life. So that that is who is the person who has to go through choicelessly the experience of pairs of opposites, no more pains and pleasures. Who? Only an Ajnani has to go through. Ajnani is no more. So no punya papams, no experience of pains and pleasures will afflict a person who has attained jnanam. Is it clear? So, therefore, atovagammyate asmat vijnanat sarvatma brahma vishayat atyantikah samsara bhavaha iti. So he quotes all these, Shankaracharya mentions this, presents these quotations, and he makes it very clear. See how much effort is made before entering into the first statement, Brahmavid apnoti param. He wants us to be convinced. You may feel, we already learned, we know all these things, we are tired of listening to this, we feel, even if we may think, but he doesn't know that, whether we know that. So he wants us to be convinced, yes, what I want is moksha, for that moksha what I want is jnanam, therefore I want to study the subject matter of Taittiriya Brahmanandavalli only, I want to study this section, this is what is Upanishad, I am interested in this shastram subject matter is what Brahma Vidya, this alone can give me, this is the pramanam for me. This is the means of knowledge. This alone can give me Brahma Vidya, which alone can free me from bondage. So he wants us to be convinced, so that we'll be more focused in understanding the subject matter of the second chapter. So he says, Ato vagamyate asmad vijnanat sarvatma brahma vishayat atyantika samsara bhavaha iti. So from all these quotations he says, Ataha, therefore, avagamyate. It is very clearly understood. This fact is understood. What is that? Asmat vijnanat. Sarvatma Brahma Vishayat. Only because of this knowledge for which the subject matter is Brahman. Sarvatma Brahma. Sarvatma Brahma. The reality which is the self of all beings is Sarvatma Brahma, and it is the knowledge of the Sarvatma Brahman alone is the only means of resolving the samsara. So total resolution of samsara, total destruction of samsara is only through this knowledge of which subject matter is Sarvatma Brahma. He repeats it. Therefore, Swayamevaha Prayojanam. Therefore, Upanishad itself begins the teaching, banging the first sentence, Brahmavida apnoti param iti adaveva sambandha prayojana jnapanartham. See, Shankaracharya quotes the first sentence of the Upanishad. Swayameva prayojanam aha. Upanishad itself begins this statement. In the very statement, it presents the what? It presents the sambandha prayojanam. What sambandha means what? Sambandha, connection between knowledge and the moksha. Sadhana sadhya sambandha Upanishad reveals, and Upanishad also reveals the prayojanam, benefit of knowledge. Upanishad reveals the benefit of knowledge of Brahman in the form of revealing the connection between the knowledge and moksha. What is the connection between jnanam and moksha? Sadhana sadhya sambandha. Means and end sambandha. And so, what is the prayojanam of jnanam? Attainment of moksha. That is revealed by the very opening statement. Adaveva, adau eva. In the very beginning opening statement itself, Upanishad reveals the benefit of Brahma Vidya. What does it say? Brahmavid apnoti param. The knower of Brahman accomplishes the infinite ultimate end moksha. Okay. Vijnatayoho hi sambandha prayojanayoho vidyashravana grahana dharanabhyasartham pravartate. Beautiful. Shankaracharya says, so vijnatayoho means what? When these two factors are understood clearly. What are two factors understood? When a person understands the benefit of Brahma Vidya, convinced of the fact of Jnanam being the only means of attainment of moksha, if he is convinced, if he understands the sambandha between Jnanam and moksha as a means and end, sambandha prayojanayoho, when understood, then vidya, shravana, grahana, dharana, abhyasartham pravartate. Then the student definitely makes all possible efforts. He involves himself in what? In listening to the teaching, vidya shravanam, in listening to the teaching, and in retaining the teaching. He makes all possible efforts to listen, understand, retain, and assimilate. Shravana, vidya shravana abhyasaha, shravana, grahana, dharana. Shravanam means listening. Grahanam means understanding. You can listen, you may understand. Listen, understand, and retain. Dharanam, retain. Once you listen, understand, and retain, then you can assimilate also. This person, pravartate. Pravartate means definitely with the conviction, born of, the understanding of the benefit of Brahma Vidya, and understanding of the connection between Brahma Vidya and moksha. Okay? That person definitely involves himself, engages himself. Why himself alone? Herself also. In this systematic, regular, continuous study of the Shastram in terms of listening, understanding, retaining, okay, one more word, assimilating the teaching. What a big, strong introduction. Do you notice this? Of course, because you already done the original text, you may think we all know this. No, we should not feel tired. This is a very important lesson. We should not feel tired of listening to this. Because how Shankaracharya presents the introduction. Okay, so here I want to tell you one thing. Now, when you read, you understand. Pujya Swamiji makes it very clear, these 3 points. When a person first understands this one, what is understanding? Brahmavid param apnoti. The knower of the reality accomplishes the ultimate and infinite. This statement makes one thing very clear. What is that? Brahman definitely exists. The knower of Brahman accomplishes the infinite end, means the end which is accomplished is infinite, means the Brahman also must be infinite, and that Brahman must be existent. This becomes very clear. First point. Okay? And second point, the word Brahma. What does the word Brahma mean? It has been derived from the root brih. Usually, Brahma means big. The word big is an adjective. Usually, any adjective is a word which describes a given thing. So, an adjective can always come only as a word which qualifies a given noun. No adjective can ever come independently without a noun. An adjective must always qualify a noun. So, and then how big it is? The degree of bigness varies. The degree of bigness of a given object always is determined based on the noun it qualifies. like big ocean, big ashram, big man, big tree, big fly, big bird, big mosquito. All these words, the big degree of bigness is determined based on the noun the word qualifies, isn't it? So it must always come with the other word. But here, this word Brahma, which means big, does not have any word around. It is a noun by itself. It's not an adjective, it's a noun by itself. Due to its bigness, it is implied by the term Brahma. Here there is something, the reality, which is implied by the term Brahma because of its bigness. So there's no word which can restrict that bigness. Therefore, how big it is, this reality implied by the term Brahma, due to its bigness, is non-restrictably, it's unrestrictedly, incomparably, limitlessly, infinitely big. Nothing can restrict its bigness. Okay? Therefore, big Brahma. Which means this bigness cannot be improved upon. Bigness cannot be made bigger than what it is. It is already the biggest. Okay? This is what the very word Brahma, it implies. This is one thing. Second point. And the third point is, Brahmavit param apnoti. So this itself, because it's Brahma means, it is what? Being the biggest means it also is free from, it is not limited by time and space. Reality, I remember time and space. That is what it is of the nature of infinitude. That is why, unless the reality implied by the term Brahma is of the nature of infinitude and limitlessness, the end which is accomplished as a result of knowing it also cannot be infinite and limitless. Because Param, the word Param means infinite, limitless. He accomplishes the absolute, ultimate end, means the end which is of the nature of infinitude. And one more thing, important point. And usually, when anything known, a person knows something, the knower does not become the known. The knower can never become the known. If I know the tree, I don't become a tree. If I know a table, I don't become a table. Not possible. But here, the knower of Brahman becomes Brahma. Knower of Brahman becomes Brahma. That is where the secret is. Okay? Accomplishment of infinitude implies what? Knower of Brahman becomes Brahma. Why? Because the knower of Brahma is not the knower of an object. Knower of Brahman is knower of Brahman obtaining as one's own self the Swarupa of this subject. Knower of Brahman becomes Brahma. Okay? Therefore, these are all small factors we need to remember. We have not gone to his commentary on those statements. His only introduction to the chapter. Okay. So what he wants to say, this person understands Sambandha Prayojana Jnanavan. The person who knows this Sambandha, what Sambandha? Karana Karya Sambandha, Sadhana Sadhya Sambandha. Moksha is something to be accomplished, for which the means is Brahma Vidya. He understands the connection. then he understands the prayojanam, the benefit of knowledge being moksha. No, moksha means what? Samsara nivrittihi. What the benefit of knowledge? Once the jnanam takes place, ajnanam goes. Ajnanam goes, samsara, born of ajnanam, will be resolved. This is called it's called sambandha, prayojanam. What's the prayojanam of jnanam? Jnana utpatto ajnana nivrittihi. Ignorance will be resolved in attainment of jnanam. Along with ignorance, samsara also will resolve. This is the phalam. Samsara, so resolving the samsara is what? In fact, take ownership of moksha. You don't attain moksha. Moksha is always there. Moksha need not be attained, cannot be attained. What is resolved is bondage. Samsaraha is resolved. Having the samsaraha resolved is claiming the moksha which is already there. For samsara to be resolved, for moksha to be claimed which is already there without attaining, ajnanam has to be resolved. Ajnana nivritti happens, which is the benefit of jnanam. He knows jnana, okay, prayojanam, use the benefit of jnanam. And he knows the sambandha between jnanam and moksha. When a person knows this, nobody can stop him from just proceeding towards attainment of jnanam. For he himself must be convinced. So Shankaracharya says, this introduction itself is for the student to be convinced of the fact, understanding of these facts. Then he will give himself to this vidya, shravana, grahana, dharana, abhyasartham pravartate. This person begins. That's why do the needful and keep quiet. That person will go searching for jnanam. Okay. Shravanadi purvakam hi vidyapalam. So, Shravanadi Purvakam hi Vidyapalam. Vidyapalam means benefit. Page number 11. Vidyapalam, he says, Vidyapalam means Jnanapalam, the benefit of Jnanam. Palam means fruit or benefit. Fruit of knowledge, the benefit of knowledge is always preceded by these three Shravanam, Mananam, Nidhyasanam, etc. Definitely Shravanam has to precede. And how he says, one should not stop. One must, who understands this benefit of knowledge, who understands the connection between Jnanam and Moksha as means and end, that person definitely involve himself in what? The disciplines. What is that which precedes the attainment of Jnanam? Enjoyment of the benefit of Jnanam. So enjoyment of the benefit of knowledge is possible only person attains jnanam, for which one must involve oneself in listening, reflecting, and contemplating upon that teaching. So Shravana Adi Purvakam, it's preceded by Shravana disciplines such as Shravanam, etc. And he says, I am not saying. Upanishad says, always Shankaracharya carefully he brings the quotation. What does he say? For which he quotes from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Shrotavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyaha ityadi shutyantarebhyaha. Earlier he mentioned quotations from Taittiriya Upanishad itself. Now he presents a quotation from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. He mentions three words, important words. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad statement. Statement from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 2nd chapter, 4th section, 5th mantra. What is it? Shrotavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyaha. we have to add the word Atma. Okay? Shrotavyaha means the nature of the reality obtaining as one's own essential nature must be repeatedly listened to. Shrotavyaha. One must listen to the unfoldment of the nature of the self from the teacher. And once Shrotavyaha, after having heard, Mantavyaha, the nature of the Atma understood from the teacher through listening must be repeatedly dwelt upon. Thereby all the doubts in the on one's understanding of the nature of the Atma must be resolved. That it is not enough, one must also, the nature of the reality clearly, doubtlessly understood must be meditated upon, contemplated upon. So he words 3 words, Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nidhyasitavyaha. These 3 words are from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. These 3 words actually imply 3 disciplines. They what are they? Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Why 3 should be done? Why not only one? 3 disciplines must be sequentially, definitely followed by all the students. Very rarely, amazingly brilliant student who had a very good samskara of the past life, that for that person Shravanam alone is enough. He's called Uttama Adhikari. He can get up and go. He does not need to come back for Mananam. Okay? But the more we don't want to come, the more we have to come back also. Is another problem. Okay. Then Mantavyaha. Mantavyaha. This is how the teaching has to be assimilated. There's no other way. It is not my own story. Shankaracharya quotes this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Okay, without going through these disciplines, there's no way. Any other shortcut method? Now tell me how clear the teaching is. From the time, in the introduction itself, he compared. He presented the subject matter of the Hiranyagarbha Upasanam and the subject matter of the Nirguna Brahma Jnanam. Saguna Brahma Upasanam, Nirguna Brahma Jnanam. Understand? What is that you want for moksha? Upasanam or Jnanam? Jnanam. Why? Upasanam cannot remove ignorance. Meditation definitely cannot remove ignorance. The meditation you can practice before the attainment of Jnanam to steady the mind, to tranquilize the mind, to calm the mind. You can practice meditation before the attainment of Jnanam, which is Saguna Brahma Upasanam. Now, apart from Upasana Phalam, as a Mumukshu, as a Jignasu, one can practice meditation as a preparatory discipline in order to steady the unsteady mind. Upasanam is the means. Before the attainment of Jnanam, you can practice meditation, not for Jnanam. To steady the unsteady mind, to prepare the mind for Jnanam, you can practice meditation. And for Jnanam, one has to go through only Shravanam. And then for clear knowledge, one has to go through Mananam. For ascertain, okay, then after having gone through the Shravanamana disciplines, one has a clear doubt-free knowledge, but still to remove the Viparyayaha, Viparita Bhavana. Viparita Bhavana is what? Erroneous perception or erroneous identity, wrong notion is what? Viparita Bhavana. For removing that, one has to dwell upon what has been clearly understood. So Nididhyasanam also is meditation. What is Nididhyasanam? Nididhyasanam also is meditation. Contemplation is a mental activity, therefore it's a meditation. But what is subject matter? What is the object of meditation? One's own Swarupam, which has been clearly understood, is the object of meditation, contemplation. So you can, and this contemplation, which is a meditation also, is not for the attainment of jnanam, is only for, not for the removal of ignorance, is only for the assimilation of the knowledge which you have already attained through Shravanam. Is it clear? So knowledge, meditation practiced after the attainment of Nirguna Brahma Jnanam is for assimilation of the Nirguna Brahma Jnanam, not for the removal of ignorance. Meditation practiced before the attainment of jnanam also is for steadying and preparing the mind for jnanam, not for the removal of ignorance. Is it very clear? Meditation can never remove ignorance. Meditation, the purpose of meditation, meditation is a beautiful discipline, wonderful discipline, Shastram prescribes, but it is not what meditation can do, what meditation cannot do must be very clear. Meditation practiced before the attainment of jnanam, definitely it is what? Saguna Brahma Upasanam. Meditation practiced after the attainment of jnanam is nididhyasanam, where object of meditation is nirgunam Brahma obtaining as one's own swarupam. Okay? Meditation after the jnanam, before the jnanam can be practiced. After the jnanam, object of meditation is not an object, one's own swarupam, which is Brahma, Nirgunam Brahma. But object of meditation before the attainment of jnanam is what? Sagunam Brahma Upasanam. Object of meditation is not one's own self, but Ishvara. Is it clear? So, this becomes very clear here. Therefore, we should not get confused. What we need is now jnanam for resolving the ignorance, the cause of samsara, to resolve the samsara, to free ourselves from bondage of samsara. Is it clear? With this is the small introductory bhashyam for Sambandha Bhashyam, the brief restatement of what has been said before, what is going to be said in this chapter has been clearly revealed. Okay. Now we have to start the chapter. Brahmavida apnoti param. Brahmavida apnoti param. Tadesha bhyukta satyam jnanamanantam brahma. Satyam jnanamanantam brahma. Yo veda nihitam guhayam. Yo veda nihitam guhayam. Parame vyoman. Parame vyoman. So oshnute sarvan kaman saha. So oshnute sarvan kaman saha. Brahmana vipaschiteti. Brahmana vipaschiteti. Okay. Few aspects which we have seen when we studied the original text, but still I remind you before going to the Bhashyam as part. Brahmavit apnoti param. Brahma is a word implying the absolute reality in terms of its nature of bigness, limitlessness. You're going to see that later on. And how limitless is it? Time-wise limitless. How does it is time-wise limitless? There's never a time reality is not. Always it is. This is the definition of eternity. What is eternal? Eternal is that which has no beginning, that which has no end, that which does not undergo any change is eternal. Okay, beginningless, endless, changeless is eternal. So it is reality is, why it is eternal? Why it doesn't have beginning? You have to say nature, Swarupam. Why it has no beginning? Beginningless is nature. That's why reality, absolute, abstract reality is of the nature of timelessness, eternity. Okay? And then, not only that, it is also spatially limitless. There's no space, no place where it is not. Space, how we are going to see it in the Bhashyam. Now I'm just telling it, just spatially limitless. There's no place it is not, no time it is not, and no object which is not the reality. Everything here is reality. It is free from object limitation also. Being free from these three possible limitations, it is the biggest. Okay? Being big is the very nature. Being limitless is its nature. So reality, which is of the nature of limitlessness, infinitude, being free from these three possible limitations is implied by the term big. Brahma. The word Brahma does not directly indicate. Always every word revealing the reality is a word revealing reality in terms of its given nature. Like this is a mic, this is a table, this is a book, this is a tumbler, this is a plant. You cannot denote reality. The word Brahma, you can't say, no, you can't, this is Brahma. You can't show that. What is Brahma? It's a word which reveals the reality in terms of its given nature of limitlessness. Understand? That's why Brahma. And this Brahma, we say, Brahma with means knower, one who knows. Brahmavit, the knower of Brahman, knower of this reality, apnoti, attains, param. Param means the most exalted, the infinite, the superior, the most superior, limitless. So, param, the most exalted end in terms of moksha, param shayaha. We are going to see that later on. So, the knower of reality accomplishes the ultimate goal. This is the meaning of this sentence you all know very well. We all know very well. Brahmavid param apnoti. Then, tad eshabhyukta. Tadepshabhyukta. So here, and this first statement is called what? Do you all remember? What is the first statement called? Sutra Bhuta Vakyam, Sutra Vakyam. A briefest state, an aphoristic statement. An aphoristic statement, a brief statement consisting of three words reveal a very profound fact. That knower of the reality accomplishes the infinite, everlasting end. All other ends accomplishable through karma and upasanam will be finite ends. So Saguna Brahma Upasana Phalam will be a finite end. Nirguna Brahma Jnana Phalam will be infinite end. So Saguna Brahma Upasana Phalam will be time-bound end. It will be timeless, everlasting end. Nirguna Brahma Jnanam benefited by everlasting end. So Saguna Brahma Upasana will keep a person continuously in samsara, whereas Nirguna Brahma Jnanam will liberate a person from bondage for good. This is the Upanishadic statement. This is the Krishna Yajurvediya Taittiriya Upanishad statement. But immediately, Tad Yesha Abhyukta. And what is that? As I said, the very first statement itself brings what now? Should give rise to three possible questions. Three possible questions should arise when we listen to this very one statement. What is that Brahman, by knowing which I can accomplish the ultimate end? Kim Tad Brahma? First question. Then what is that? Kim Tat Brahma? Then how can we know that Brahman? Kim Tat Brahma, what is that Brahman, by knowing which I can accomplish the ultimate end? How can I know that Brahman, by knowing which I can accomplish the ultimate end? And what is that ultimate end? Infinite end. What do you mean by saying accomplishing the infinite everlasting end? What does the word Param actually mean? Three possible questions should rise when we listen to this first statement, and for which Upanishad itself quotes a Rigveda mantra. Tad Yesha Abhyukta. Here is Abhyukta means what? Rik. Abhyukta means it has been. Abhyukta, it is mentioned, it is said here. Tad Esha means what? Tad, regarding this aphoristic briefest Sutra Bhuta Vakyam, with reference to this statement also, he said, with reference to this brief statement, Esha Abhyukta. Esha means this. Why this? Because quotation is going to be following. This statement of Rigveda, which is a mantra. So, Brahmana means a prose Upanishad. Taittiriya is a prose Upanishad. But mantra, a verse, in verse form. Okay? A quotation from Rigveda. So, Rig mantra is quoted. Abhyukta quoted. Regarding this statement, with reference to this statement, Brahmavid apnoti param, a Rig mantra is quoted. What does the Rig mantra say? Where does it begin? Where does it end? It begins from Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman So Oshnute Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschiteti. There, leave the word, last word iti. Brahmana Vipaschita. Until then, Satyam Jnanam, Satyam onwards, until Vipaschita. This is the mantra, not Brahmana. Okay? So, verse mantra from Rigveda. And this Rigveda briefly gives answers for three questions. Three questions which rise when you hear this first statement. Those three questions, brief answers for three questions, are given by this quotation from Rig mantra. Rigveda. Rigveda mantra gives the answers. What is Brahman? We'll just see the answers. We will see the unfoldment tomorrow morning fresh. Okay? We'll just see the words, meanings now. What is Brahman? For which Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam, literal meaning we'll tell you today. Tomorrow morning we'll see the unfoldment. Satyam, existence. Jnanam, knowledge. Anantam, limitlessness. So limitless, existence, consciousness. Jnanam, consciousness, is Brahma. What is Brahma? Kim tat Brahma? Limitless consciousness, existence is Brahma. Tomorrow morning will unfold. Then, where can we discover that Brahman? How can we know that Brahman? He says, Guhayam parame vyomni nihitam. Parame vyomni. Vyoman means space. Within that exalted space, obtaining within the heart, there is cave of mind. In that cave of mind, obtaining within this space in the heart, Brahman is kept hidden, available for recognition. It's a brief answer. Then what is the third answer? What is moksha? Kim tat param? What is param? For which so oshnute sarvan kamaan saha brahmana vipaschita. So saha ashnute, that person enjoys. Saha ashnute, that person enjoys. That person enjoys what? Sarvan kaman. Sarvan kaman, all objects of pleasures. All the pleasures simultaneously together. Saha. That person enjoys all pleasures simultaneously together, remaining as Brahman, remaining one with Brahman. Brahmana saha. Remaining as Brahman, being one with Brahman, that person enjoys all pleasures simultaneously, as it were. This is what is moksha. No. So enjoying all pleasures simultaneously means what? There's no object of pleasure this person is deprived of. If enjoying all pleasures means what? There's no dukkham at all, no sorrow at all, no pain at all, no suffering at all, no worry at all. Any pleasure the person wants to enjoy, he's enjoying. Not one by one, simultaneously. This person has absolute satisfaction, absolute contentment. Why? Because the contentment and satisfaction a person can enjoy by enjoying all the pleasures simultaneously, this person has. This is what is moksha. What does it mean? It has to be understood. There's always happiness only for him. There's no dukkham at all for him. Who is that person who enjoys this? Yaha Veda. Yaha Veda. One who knows. The person who knows enjoys absolute satisfaction, absolute contentment, born of being able to enjoy all pleasures simultaneously. Even without enjoying all the pleasures also, the person has the contentment and satisfaction which is possible, accomplishable, attainable only when a person is as good as having all the pleasures enjoyed simultaneously. Such enjoyment of all pleasures is what will result in having absolute satisfaction. This person has that. Not by enjoying the pleasures, without enjoying the pleasures also this person has that satisfaction. So which is as good as having enjoyed all the pleasures simultaneously. Who is that person who has that absolute satisfaction? Yaha Veda, one who knows. Knows what? Guhayam nihitam, parame vyomni guhayam nihitam brahma yaha Veda. One who has discovered, one who knows this Brahma, obtaining in one's own mind, available within the space of heart. He attains. This is the, okay. And then when he has this satisfaction, he is no more, sees himself as an individual associated with the body, mind, and complex. He sees himself being Brahma. Brahmana vipaschita. Remaining one with Brahman. Remaining as Brahman. This person has this satisfaction. This is a brief answer for what is Param, what is Moksha. He got 3 answers. Rigveda Mantra presents the 3 brief answers for 3 questions. But now Upanishad again is going to present an elaboration of 3 answers. And the elaborate answer for these 3 questions, or elaboration of these 3 answers, is going to form the rest of the subject matter of the entire chapter. Okay? This is like this. So, and this statement is called, the elaborate answer is called what? Vistaraha. Remember? Sutra Bhuta Vakyam. Vistaraha means elaborate, the elaborate commentary upon this brief Rigveda Vedic answer. Vistaraha means elaboration, the whole teaching. This is how the teaching is presented here. So, I also want to remind you today itself one more point. Vyoman means space, but here it must be Vyomni. We should not correct the Vedic statements. Vyomni, in the space. But space, even Akasha space outside also is called Vyoman. But here Mantra Upanishad space prescribes, Guhayam is also mentioned. The space here is a space obtaining within the heart. The physical heart. I mentioned this earlier. I need not mention, but still let me tell you. Because human physical heart is the Golakam. A Golakam cannot be translated into English language. Maybe it can be, I don't know. Golakam is a physical part where invisible, subtle power obtains. See, subtle power is located in a gross physical part. Perceptible gross physical part, which is known as Golakam, becomes the locus for subtle invisible power. The power also is matter, the Golakam also is matter, but subtle power always is located in the Golakam, physical part. So how we have the 10 Golakam, we have the subtle powers, 5 Jnana Indriyani, like eyes, ears, etc. They're all Golakani. So if somebody dies, only Golakani become burnt. Or when the cremation happens, Golakani are cremated, okay, burnt into ashes. But Indriyani are not available for burning. Indriyani are not available for cremation, or they are not reduced to ashes. Indriyani escape. Sukshma. Indriyani, no element or elementals can do any harm to Indriyani because they are subtle. Okay, along with the mind, all 10 powers and pranas leave the physical body and go, which is departure of the Sukshma from the Sthulam. Is it clear? So Indriyani are not destroyed. They continue to be survey. So Indriyam is different. Similarly, for all these 5 sense powers we have Golakani, the physical parts. Similarly, mind also antahkaranam, which is subtle matter known as sukshma dravyam. Antahkaranam, the sukshma dravyam, subtle, imperceptibly subtlest matter, which is also an indriyam, a power, and for that Golakam is physical heart. So physical heart is perceptible. If the dissection we do also, physical heart we can see, but inside the space we cannot see the mind there. Okay, let me cut the heart and see. You can't go and search for the mind there. Mind is never available for perception. Mind is that which objectifies everything. Mind is not available for sense perception. You cannot see through physical eyes the mind. Understand? Therefore, mind is, antahkaranam is the indriyam, and for its physical heart is the golakam. Being subtle, where is it? It's there in the space. Is it clear? Okay. This much. We'll stop and I'll come back and see you tomorrow. We just started the topic. We'll see tomorrow. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Even in deep sleep, somebody comes and wakes you up and asks you the questions, you can tell. That much thorough knowledge it must have. But immediately after the textual study, doing the Bhashya is good. I got a message from my India continued. It's going to extend the curfew. So I'm supposed to be opening on the 14th of April. It's going to be another 21 days, it seems. The latest news, I don't know. It may be changed.